Hi, Carrie.
Hi, Josh.
I feel like I haven't seen you. We haven't been talking at all.
I know we haven't been talking at all.
No. I feel like Hannah should just start it while we're talking. Would you be okay with that?
No, probably not.
No? Okay. I didn't think you would be.
No, but
That's
you
what
had
I
to
was-
ask. Push
Yeah.
it. Mm-hmm.
I thought there's it's like Dumb and Dumber. It's like,
Oh, you're telling me
so
there's
you're
a chance.
telling me there's a chance.
Yeah.
You know?
No, I'm telling you there's not a chance.
There's a chance, like maybe if you're really like just out of it one day or something.
That's
you know,
true.
just do whatever.
That's true.
That could happen. I'm
Catch
doing
me
it.
sleepy and after allergy medicine, maybe I'd say yes.
Yeah. Like here's like some kind of mental health roofie. Like
Oh, mental health roofie. Aren't
yeah,
those oxymorons?
like NyQuil. I just want you to talk. The podcast one, I guess.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I do like NyQuil though, I will say. Not that that's on topic or anything.
No, it's
but
not. But I know you would
I
like
do.
to sleep better than you sleep.
I
so
think,
that
yeah,
makes
I
sense.
sleep. I mean, most people know I have narcolepsy, but that doesn't mean I get good sleep. Actually, it
No.
means I get bad
It
sleep.
means you get bad sleep.
So when I take NyQuil, which I don't do unless I have a cold, but I'm like, man, I need a cold. I'm tired.
I want that good
Because
sleep.
man, I get some really good sleep when I take NyQuil. I also get good sleep on ibuprofen too.
Oh.
Do you? I know you and I are both kind of
Yeah.
pill poppers.
We have
on
an ibuprofen love affair.
Yeah.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Does
I don't
it-
get, no.
So sometimes, like if I'm hurting, like I won't take ibuprofen till it's bedtime because I know it'll help me sleep.
Oh,
Yeah.
we should explore that.
Well, it made sense to me. Like you're not aching in the middle of the night.
Yeah. Well,
I
yeah.
sleep better.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. So, well,
Okay.
what were we going to
We
talk
are
about
just
today?
talking. I know. Do you not remember?
Yeah. That's what we're going to talk about. So we better move forward with it. We're going to talk today about memory and the role of memory in couple communication. So don't go anywhere. We're back. A long break.
Long break.
So we're going to talk about the role of memory in couple communication.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why memory came up as a potential topic for us is because see, I can't remember. What was the episode that we did where we talked about the Willy Wonka?
I
clip?
I can't remember the topic from it because I remember now how much we were wrong. My memory
Yeah.
has changed. Now the significant event is not what we talked about.
Because we were talking about paradoxes, but I don't think that was the topic.
No, we haven't picked up.
But, I'll have to go back and look and see. But it was probably like, I think it was 2 episodes
I
ago.
believe so.
So the last one we did was, of course I can't remember that either.
Oh boy, we are really
bad.
illustrating what
It
we're
was
talking
bad,
about
yeah.
today.
Well, let's just move on.
Don't ask that. Yeah.
So in 2 episodes ago, we did the whatever topic that was, where we mentioned your quote that you say from Willy Wonka, which you'll probably never say again.
Never again.
And we were just both of us, like we were just certain that
We were.
that's what it was, and so I went back and I was doing a YouTube short, is what I did, and so took a clip of it and edited it up. But I was like, I'm gonna add the video. I was like, I'm gonna add the actual video of it at the end. And so I went and looked up the YouTube video of Willy Wonka, and I tell you, I found the one that we're talking about, and I was like, there must be another one. So I searched for a long time,
I didn't know
thinking
that.
like, where is this? Where is it? Where it said the way Carrie says it? Also on a boat,
I know.
which they weren't on a boat.
Which they weren't. No.
We got every
Everything.
aspect of that wrong.
When in the movie? What was
Yes.
said? Who was
was like,
present? The scene? Everything.
Who said it?
Yep. We got everything
yeah.
wrong.
Yeah, it was backwards. I think.
It was backwards. Yeah.
All right, you have to go forward, go backwards. You have to go forward to go backwards, is what he said.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Now don't try to remember
Right.
remembering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we were saying you have to go back to go forward, or
We got
forward
it-
to go back.
We got it wrong.
Right.
We both remembered it really
Yeah.
incorrectly.
And I was certain that they were on the boat.
I had it all in my head. I could see it, which is exactly what we're talking about today.
Right. Yes. And so I was like, we got to do one on memory.
Yeah.
And also how that affects couple communication. And we were talking about, well, let me just kind of give everybody the structure. So I'll have Hannah put that up on the screen so people can see I didn't go through it. Man, I'm jumping ahead of a lot of things. All right. So before we begin, let me just remind everybody to please subscribe to our channel. Ring the bell to be notified of future videos that are posted. If you're listening to this on the audio platforms like Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you're listening to your podcast, I don't know why people listen to. I guess some of the other platforms are preferred for some reason. And so, but if you're liking the podcast, please give us a 5-star review and write us something nice if you want. But also, if you want to watch it live, you can head on over to our YouTube channel and watch it there. So, okay. So now getting into the format of this episode and talking about the role of memory in couple communication, we're going to, we're going to start out with talking about, just kind of begin with just how does memory help us in general? I mean, what's the point? And why does it change over time? And what are the limitations to memory? And then we're going to, dive into like some tools or tips on, how to, effectively use memory in couple communication. Uh-huh. And one thing we were kind of chatting about is, kind of in the pre-chat, is some of the television shows and things like that and if that utilize memory or have memory as a part of it. If you really think about it, like I probably most use memory shows, movies to some degree, and some movies and shows are use it as a central theme, like you mentioned Severance, right?
Yes.
And so, which is challenging. Do you have memories you wish you would be okay with not remembering?
Mm-hmm. I mean, just the unpleasant, whatever.
Yeah.
Sure.
And of course, in that movie or show, it's like he doesn't want to live through a part of his day. Like, doesn't even want to remember. Is that kind of the concept of it? Like, he goes to work.
And he's just this work version.
Right.
But then I think he goes home and he's himself again.
Right.
But he doesn't have to remember the loss.
Right.
Yeah.
That's intense,
Very.
And deep. And there probably are people that hurt to such a degree where they have to remember things every day they don't want to remember. And that's kind of the, that's how trauma works,
Right.
But then there's like, I mentioned to you, I don't think you'd seen it. I think it's the very first episode of Black Mirror, which I put that link in the description of the video already, where it is about a couple. I believe I'm trying to remember back on it, but I believe that one of them had been unfaithful, and they were having an argument, and they had the technology to make it to where everything they see is being recorded all the time. So anything they need to go back and check on, so that everything's being documented basically in their memory banks, and they can just basically plug in to like connect to their television or whatever, and then pull up the memories, and they can just watch them straight from their brains. And it's interesting because it presents a lot more conflict. It actually puts it in perspective on why you might not want to remember things exactly as they were.
Right.
Especially when you're arguing. And as we have seen many times with couples, like, do you really want to win? Like, does that really help? I remember one of our professors always said, even when I win, I lose when it comes to arguments,
Right.
with his partner. So it's a lot of, I didn't even think about it till you mentioned Severance, and I was like, man, there's probably a lot of...
Remember Memento?
Oh, Memento, so good.
Yeah.
I watched that for the first time, like 6 months ago.
Oh, wow. it's really, really, really powerful. Yeah.
Yeah, and who's the actor in that?
Guy
Pearce.
Yeah. Yeah.
Super, like, what happened to him? He's super underrated. He should be in everything.
Mm-hmm.
He's such a good actor.
I know.
But yeah, I mean, that's a really good one.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so obviously there's a lot of movies like that, but even if it's not a central theme, I bet you in most shows or movies you're going to see something related to memory as being part of
Right.
part of the storyline.
Sure.
So let's just start with the kind of the first question, like, and when we dive into these questions, we're just going to have a conversation about what we think, and then of course, if you read anything or know anything particular, but anybody who wants to fact check it in terms of like what the science is saying about this or that, we're open to that.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we're just going to talk like we would if we're having a conversation about it. But it's just from your end of it, or your perspective, what do you think the reason is for memory? I mean, why do we even have it?
For safety. Right. So
Yeah.
you can remember the safe people and places, and you can remember the not so safe people and places.
Yeah.
Right. And make choices that keep you preserved. Right. I mean,
Yeah.
memory is essential.
Was it Yuval Harari that talks about I don't know if it was him or somebody else on some podcast I listened to, where they're talking about like that they, however many eons ago, the person in your tribe that had a good memory was crucial for survival.
Uh-huh.
Because they're not only the person that can remember how to get back, but they also remember, which berries you can eat and which ones you can eat.
Right.
And, because their memory is so good. So
That's right. The wisdom of living longer and having life experience to pass on their memories, right? That becomes these learning opportunities. Yeah.
So it was just interesting to me that from a community standpoint, that having at least someone who has a good memory would, to go to your point, would make you feel safe.
Yeah.
And his memory is also one of those things where it's different from person to person, and it diminishes. We have trouble with it as we get older, as I just demonstrated.
Yes.
Apparently
many times.
Right. But having someone that has a really good memory was, at least from an evolutionary perspective, crucial to survival.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fundamental.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think, or at least historically, would you say you have a really good memory?
Except for my Willy Wonka thing. Yeah.
Have you been accused of it? How about that?
I think I do. I think I have a good memory.
Okay. I do too. I do. It does bother me a little bit. I feel like lately it's like I have trouble pulling up certain words, or just like, I know I should know that podcast episode. It's really bothering me, the title. I can't even think of the title of it. And I can see her picture and everything. But like when it comes to like memories from childhood, my sister was just joking with me about wondering how I remember all the things that I remember, or movie quotes. Unfortunately, didn't remember. The Willy Wonka thing is really
the exception to your good memory.
Yeah. But yeah, I typically have a good memory on things like that.
Yeah.
But even on that though, a good memory doesn't necessarily mean you're remembering things exactly as they were, right?
Right.
So like someone, like you bring up the Willy Wonka thing, be like, well, Carrie has a good memory. She remembers things like that. You didn't remember exactly as it was, but the fact that you just remembered it might qualify for some people as you having a good memory.
Yeah. But I think that's kind of taking us to the next, like, why do memories change over time?
Yeah. Why?
Because I think meaning shifts. I think of memory often as layers, right?
Yeah.
So the event, the experience, whatever meant this, and then other things happened, and then kind of grows and gets layered upon.
Right. So I put this question in there because my wife asked me a similar question after we listened to the Malcolm Gladwell podcast on revisionist history. I also put a link to that where
That's a
it's
great
on the
episode.
flashbulb memories,
Yeah.
which was the Free Brian Williams episode.
It's one of my favorites of his.
Oh yeah, it's great. It's wonderful. Where he really dives into what memory is and what it isn't, and how it changes. But one question he doesn't really, at least I don't remember him saying or addressing, is like the evolutionary purpose of it. And so my wife's a scientist, so she was like, "What do you think the evolutionary reason for that would be? Like, I mean, why would our brains evolve in such a way where we don't remember things exactly as they were?" Because I don't know if you remember what Malcolm Gladwell was talking about there were flashbulb memories, because he was mentioning 9/11 and saying that after 9/11 happened, which would be like the mecca of a flashbulb event, flashbulb events being things you're supposed to remember,
Things that usually start with,
Right.
I'll never forget where I was when.
Exactly.
Right.
And I remember seemingly exactly where I was when 9/11 happened. And so the flashbulb scientists scatter, to gather data, asking some just basic questions like, where were you? Who were you with? What were you wearing? So on and so forth. And of course, I am also going off memory right now. So yeah, I'm probably not getting it exactly right. But in a nutshell, like a number of years later, 10 years, 15 or something like that, they went back to the same people, asked them the same questions. And I think it was an astronomical percentage. I want to say it was like on average over 60% of their story changed. Not 60% of the people interviewed changed their stories, but on average across the board, on average 60% of the story itself changed. That is wild.
That is
to
wild.
me.
Yeah. Because people will say, no, I remember it exactly.
Yeah,
I will
right.
never, ever forget. Yeah.
Right. And so we were listening to that, and then my wife is like, well, what do you think the evolutionary purpose of that? I mean, there's got to be a reason for that. And I just, the short answer is I don't know exactly. I have theory on it. And I think it goes back to that Black Mirror thing. Like, I don't know. Do you want to know? Like, every time you think of 9/11, do you want to remember it as if it happened?
Like a playback.
Yeah. I don't think I do.
Instead, you want to remember what?
I think we want to remember enough to capture, what happened, to be able to tell the story, to adequately report on history. But I think there's, a downside to being able to, recall things exactly as they were. What's that condition that people have where they can, like, you can say, what happened on November 22nd of 1983 at 5 p.m. and they're like,
they know it. Yeah.
Yeah. I would love to talk with someone who has that condition, and see if it has a downside, in that sense. But I think the Black Mirror really kind of illustrates that, because, if one is that it might help you win an argument, it might help you, but it's not going to help you, connect with the person that you're arguing with, which usually is your partner.
Right.
But I also think that, so it's like storytelling in a way. Like, memories might change that because you needed to make a point, like based upon how you're using it, which is what happened with Brian Williams. Because and they went back and looked, I think, at every time he told this story that of him and this particular incident, that over the course of years, like a little bit changed each time. And but I remember at a church camp that my wife and I worked when we were early 20s, and she's not so much an outdoors person, camp person, and she goes into her cabin, and there's a spider there, right? And she, we meet up at the mess hall. I was like, hey, how's your cabin? How's your bunk? And all this stuff. She goes, Josh, there's a spider in there. And she literally takes like both her hands. And she's like, it was this big around, right? And her co-counselor is behind her going, shaking her head with a much smaller circle, And to this day, though, she will tell you that spider was that big.
That big.
But I'm like, what spider are you? Was it a tarantula?
Right. Yeah.
I think she would have said tarantula, but it was some kind of regular spider that grew into astronomical size. But I think, when you have a fear response, like for reasons of survival, it needs to embellish and amplify, right?
Yeah, to her it was that big because it was that alarming and alerting. Yeah.
I think she was also telling me how much she did not want to be out there.
Yeah, probably. It's not my cup of tea.
So that's what I'm saying. It makes the point.
Maybe that's the point of not remembering it accurately. It's because it's communicating other things.
Yeah.
Like the memory of 9/11 isn't about just the historical accuracy, right? It's about what it meant to you and who you were around and how it shifted things. Like that's the story probably that when someone asks you, tell me about the story of where you were when 9/11 happened, that's what you're going to remember. Yeah. Maybe that's the most meaningful piece of it.
Yeah. I can see I think, there's more to the purpose of memory than just recounting exactly.
Being a computer, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. And very mechanical. So,
right.
And so let's move it. So that's the theoretical. Anybody that's got good literature on that, feel free to send that our way. I would love to read it. But that's what would make sense to me.
Well, the stuff that I have listened to a couple of memory experts talk, and they're neuroscientists, so they're above my pay grade for sure. But it sounds to me like the idea of memory is in multiple systems in the brain and interacts with each other differently. And so there's even almost a mechanistic understanding of why it shifts and perhaps why it changes over time, right? Because different systems have been played a part in not just making the memory, but then recalling the memory, and then where it gets associated to the other systems in the brain, right? So I think too that just like the more you study about the brain, the more complex it is. You're like, there's not one area that helps you do A, B, or C. It's this area plus a little bit of this, plus the overlap of this that activates this, right? And I think so. Part of the reason that it's hard for me to articulate it is not just because it's something I can't understand because I'm not a neuroscientist. I think it's because we're just discovering how complex and interrelated it is.
That's why so many things about it that we don't understand. Like something that really throws me for a loop, and it really speaks to how amazing our brains are, is that how can I be looking at you right now and also see something else in my mind at the same time? That and so we call that the mind's eye, right? Our mind's eye. Right. And I'm like, that is wild to me. Like wild. Our brains are made up of just like tissue and water and electricity or something. You just like, how is an image able to form like that? Yeah. Inside of there.
It's amazing.
Yeah. That's probably not accurate, whatever image it is.
But it's happening.
But it's there. Yeah. And we also know from eyewitness testimony that this is getting into the third point, which is the limitations of our memory. We know that I just read an article that I also posted along with this in the description of this video that they it was like a study that was done where 75%, they reviewed a bunch of cases, and it was like 75% of these cases that were predicated on an eyewitness testimony, they had when DNA testing came in, it was like they set a bunch of people free. It was like 75%. Some of them were set for execution. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And so it was like, and it made me think of a time, and I don't even remember where I was. It's so funny now. I catch yourself saying, I don't remember. Do you remember? I don't even remember where I was at this time, but I was having to tell somebody like, hey, there's a car coming to pick you up, or something to that effect, to that effect, where and I was describing the car that I'd seen, and I was like, it's a black SUV, kind of Tahoe like SUV, that's going to come pick you up. And that car was as white as snow. It just, in my mind, it was black.
A black SUV. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, well, I remember thinking in that moment, like, well, that's why eyewitness testimony isn't reliable.
Yeah. And I was hearing a study the other day about asking eyewitnesses questions like, did you see a red sports car? And then you ask them that same question a couple times. And by the third one, I think people are like, well, maybe.
Yeah.
Or it was kind of off in the distance, right? And in their first accounting, they didn't say anything about a red sports car, right? And so the idea was that memory shiftable. You ask them things, maybe, keep an idea there, and it becomes something that then they integrate into their story.
Yeah. Yeah. It's wild.
I know.
And so there are, some limitations to memory, but I think it's the limitations aside from like biological things, like we have memory loss, as we get older, we don't remember things as well, and the accuracy of our memories can wane to some degree, or if there's dementia or something like that. Right. But I think if memory is utilized, I feel like correctly, then there's those limitations really. I don't know if there are limitations to it, because I think there are really only the limitations if you are trying to utilize it in ways that aren't helpful or ways that it was intended to be used.
So we're not designed to be on a witness stand.
Yeah, was it intended to say, yes, this happened, with 100% certainty, or is it meant to, provide some other type of information or data,
Yeah, maybe.
Like for safety reasons,
right.
As we talked about earlier.
Right. That's what maybe the brain is more alerted to than all those details.
Yeah. So, how many times in a couple relationship do we hear, experience in a couple session, couples arguing about how something did or didn't go down?
Oh, all the time, every time.
Yeah.
And skilled people will start to use language of how I remember it is,
right.
or what stands out to me is, right? But yes, and people will say often, right? No, I know it was this. This is the language. I distinctly remember.
Yeah.
Right.
And sometimes, and this happens more often, this actually surprises me a little bit when it happens, where someone is saying this happened and the other person is like completely beside themselves, of like not even remembering at all.
Right.
Anything remotely close. And that happens sometimes. And I'm a little taken aback by that, being like, man, either someone's memory is really shot here or somebody's lying, or gaslighting or something.
Right.
But more often, but kind of the thing that you described is more of what happens, where this is how I remember it. But that's not how it's presented. It's presented as, this is what happened. Yeah. I know, I was there.
Right. You think I wouldn't remember if you said that to me?
Right.
That's the
gosh, those things are not in the therapy office, but when I hear this, like on whether it's a talk show, television shows, politics or something, and someone's like, I was there. Like you're telling me I wouldn't remember my own kid doing da 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 da, and I'm just like, well, the science kind of says,
you wouldn't remember.
You wouldn't.
Yeah.
Like, your testimony is just as bad.
Right.
Right. Your eyewitness report.
So you're kind of sneaking into the last point there, even with that, right?
Yeah.
Because you're labeling what's not effective, right?
Right.
And we're going to talk about effective uses of memory, right? So in the therapy room, what do you find yourself saying when you can tell there's about to be that debate around memory?
Okay. So, what you said earlier is probably the thing I say the most to clients is, and when you're teaching them tools on how to communicate about memory, is to say, this is how I remember it, because it allows for it acknowledges the reality of memory, which is it's not always accurate, but it also at the same time validates that it is the memory I have. So that's kind of what I have to go with. Right. It's not like I can magically just change it. Right. So this is just how I remember it. So I'm not saying this is how it was or how that's 100% accurate. I just remember it this way, because that memory is going to be generating a storyline, a narrative, right? And that narrative is going to come with certain other perceptions and judgments and a lot of feelings, and so if if that, a lot of times I also say, like, your imagination also will kind of start filling in the gaps. And usually when your imagination has to fill in gaps, it doesn't usually fill them in the most positive way
and accurate way.
And so if you're making room, in effort to make room for the narrative to change, you have to acknowledge what it is in that moment.
I agree. Yeah, that's the strategy right there, right? Is I'm going to make room for your memory, right? Here's the space of as I remember it, so that there's room for other pieces. Yeah, that's the tool. Yeah. I also think that sometimes, you can even find yourself sharing with clients. Like, I think it's because I do think it's pretty common knowledge that the memory isn't always accurate. And I'll say it's like that, kind of like, I'm not getting into an either or debate, it is or it isn't, right? Just more of I think we all kind of understand that memory isn't exactly accurate. So how about we think about talking about this experience, and you talk about it, what it was like from your side, right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of times also to be effective in their communication, which isn't about the content, right? Isn't about the exact details of what happened, is to ask people, what do you remember? What do you think makes that stand out so much? Because a lot of times people, and I'll try and even ask them if they don't get there, that their body had a reaction. They'll go, oh no, when that happened, I had that same lump in my throat, right? Or, oh no, my stomach dropped just like that. Or no, I had to suck in my breath because I was taken aback.
Yeah.
And so those sensations are indicators of, like you're talking about, a historical narrative, right?
Right.
Because that may have been the first time you did that, but probably not.
Yeah.
Right. It's probably associated with other memories.
Right. And so if you're wanting to let memory be utilized the way it's intended to be, which
functional
is
way,
right,
maybe.
to create safety, it does give data, but it's just not. You're abandoning this idea that that I even have to give
Be precise,
100% accurate data. Because usually what people are wanting is validation, and so you have to self-validate, and realize that, your memory, is good enough for you to be able to, convey the narrative to whoever you're talking to for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And so when you're doing that, oh crap, there was a point I was making with
Can't remember.
yeah, went down that rabbit trail. Now you're making me laugh.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm making it worse.
No, but the point I was making is that you have to abandon the idea. Oh, that was it. See, looky there.
No, it came back around.
Now I forgot. No, just kidding. No, but you have to abandon the idea that you're even required to know exactly what happened. I don't have to. Someone's like, that's not what happened. Okay, maybe it's not.
Right.
I don't have to know exactly how it happened.
Right.
'Cause there's a point I'm trying to make based upon my experiences of you or a situation or event. And so I don't need to know exactly how it happened.
Yes.
Yes. This again, we're not in a court of law here.
But how do you think this applies, Josh, for people that are asking about specific events, or, because we do what was called therapeutic disclosure here, right? So in therapeutic disclosure, we're having the couple come in because they are doing this disclosure in an effort to heal and repair their relationship. And they're disclosing secrets that have been kept. And the person hearing the disclosure doesn't want poor effort, doesn't want to hear a whole lot of, I can't remember. What they want is to hear as close to the truth, right, as perhaps is possible.
Right.
So what do you think are kind of, if we're talking about what's effective for clients, how do you go about trying to remember with more accuracy and precision?
Well, I mean, there's for that. All I could do is speak to how we do it with the betrayal trauma clients. When what Carrie's talking about is the client that has betrayed. Sometimes will partake. The couple will partake in what's called a therapeutic disclosure, where we help them put together a statement where they basically go over everything that they were up to in secret from the point that they got together to present day, and there is a lot of convenient memory loss, and I think that is I don't think they're intentionally doing that. I think that serves the purpose of the secret keeper, the addict, or whatever you want to call them, but the person who committed the act of infidelity, like if you think about in terms of this, kind of gets into kind of compartmentalization, like how am I able to, go have, multiple affairs with somebody and then come home at night and kiss my kids goodnight and then lay next to my partner, because it doesn't serve me to remember, well anyways,
right.
So it does take some effort to get them to dive into that and to let those memories start to unfold. And usually, from my experience in working with people, it's when you start going down the timeline and you get them to slow down. Right. Like, hold on, let's go back to that. Right. Let's dive into that a little bit. Then they remember something else, and then they remember something else. Right. It's like now we're getting some traction, and and I think once they kind of get that, it's like putting a train on the rails. Once momentum's going, it kind of just starts to come at that point. But the problem is, even with the therapeutic disclosure, is that they're still going to give a statement that's based upon how they remember it.
Right.
Which is one of the, conundrums for the partner that they learn, right? And so it still might not be, and likely isn't probably isn't based upon,
yeah,
100% accurate. It's just how they remember it. The other thing too that is bothersome to partners is the reality that they'll never know, they'll never have all the information. So even if it were possible for the person to adequately regurgitate everything that ever came into their mind or ever feeling during that they were keeping secret, the reality is that they were there and the other person wasn't.
Right.
So it's all based on their experiences, and they're just left to tell a story.
That's right.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
And how accurate that story is who knows?
Yeah.
That's where the expression, there's your perspective, the other person's perspective, and then there's what really happened, which, unless you have a Black Mirror technology, nobody knows.
Unless we go back to that, right?
So, but I wanted to mention another thing that I start couples off with too, because I tell them, I do think it's important that a couple should be able to talk about the accuracy of memories. Like if I'm remembering something really incorrectly, I want to be able to have that discussion, not get defensive, and
really be open to
and to accept. To be able to accept the evidence that's being put forth, to say, okay, maybe I was wrong about that. For example, Willy Wonka, right? I'm pretty sure if I had I did. You didn't. I showed you the clip, but you had it seemed like you believed me when I told you were wrong. I don't think you needed the clip. I don't
No,
think you
I
needed the
believed you.
evidence.
I trust that you're not telling me that just to be mean, right? Making
Yeah.
it up. Yeah.
You know how weird it was for me to say that out
You were
loud?
wrong.
Like, you're wrong, Carrie.
But I was. Yeah, my memory was wrong.
That's the first. What was it like? First time.
Well, it was new.
That's the only thing I remember you doing wrong. I need to think of you as in that light.
Okay. Yeah, I know. Well, sorry to burst the bubble with the Willy Wonka thing.
Yeah. But Willy Wonka just screwed everything
It ruined
up.
it.
It rocked my world, man. No, but one thing that I started off with, so we need to be able to do that. We need to be able to go back. A couple should be able to talk about, okay, like, that's not really what happened, because there's some things it's like,
Yeah.
like, I wrecked the car or something. Like, no, you didn't wreck the car, you wrecked the truck. Something like,
yeah.
like stuff like that. Remember, da-da-da-da. But the first thing I tell them that they need to start talking about are emotions. Like it's like you can't argue feelings.
Yeah.
So just like when you're saying, that's just how I remember it. It's like you also say, this is how I feel.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So the feelings that come with it, that's the first thing, because that's what the memory is really supporting,
Yes.
in my opinion, is
Right.
some emotional experience,
Right.
So whatever happened, that's how I felt. Like that's how you made me feel, or that situation, that's the feeling that emerged, despite what happens.
Yeah.
And that's where you start, is learning to do that. And like I said, you can't argue that. You can't argue. You can't say to some. You can say it.
You can say it, but
not going to work.
it's
You
not
say
gonna-
like, well, you shouldn't have felt that
Right.
way.
Or you didn't feel that way.
You didn't feel that way.
I know.
Yeah.
I told my son about crying when he went off to school. He's like, I don't remember that. I'm like, well, no, you don't. I do.
Maybe I was crying when you went off the school.
No. No, but yeah, it's just not helpful. So I really like that I think you're giving people permission to say, it's not that you can't touch and address having different memories, but you can't say, no, it was the truck, not the car, or whatever.
Yeah.
But the next and then probably the more couple related, more effective piece is to talk about the emotions associated with that memory. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so if how would you help somebody say, because how we're like helping with these tips, and they'll say, yeah, but if I say that, then they'll say this, right? So if I say, I'm just telling you how I felt, and then they're going to say, well, you shouldn't feel that way.
Yeah.
How would you respond to that?
Well, I think if you're really good at it, you say, maybe not, maybe that's hard for you, but I know that that's how I felt.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Right. And so you don't get into an argument about that. Again, that's just pile up,
Yeah.
right? But really what that person is telling you is, I don't like how I feel hearing about how you felt. And your job can be to just open that space up,
You're
but
absolutely
continue to sit in your feeling as well.
Yeah, and I like that little caveat you put on there, because it's also something that I work on with people too, with saying, first acknowledging that what I should or shouldn't have been feeling is not what's in question right now.
Right. Neither here nor there.
Right.
I use that phrase a lot.
Right, because feelings, we don't choose them; they just happen to us.
That's right.
And so saying maybe not, maybe I shouldn't have felt, but I did.
Yep.
I think that's really key.
It's a surrender. To me, it's a surrender of communication. Like you're like, I get it that this is hard. You're kind of surrendering to not needing to battle accuracy. And instead you're shifting to, I'm really hoping we can hear and understand each other, which probably most couples, when they come in, especially to couples therapy, they are hurting enough that they're somewhat willing to give up the dogmatic who's right and who's wrong. And they're more willing to say, I just kind of want to understand each other.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, one thing I'll tell people, like with apologies, for example, like it's like most apologies that we make in our adult life aren't for really anything we did wrong. Sometimes there are, but it's few and far between. Most of the time we're apologizing for the way someone experienced us. That's why a lot of times it's like, I didn't even know I didn't know I hurt you.
Right.
I didn't know I offended you. And then we say, I didn't mean to do that. And then somebody's like, I'm not apologizing. Oh, I didn't do anything wrong.
Right,
I was like,
right.
but that's not what you're apologizing for.
Right.
You're apologizing out of empathy
And consideration.
for how someone experienced you. And if somebody if someone experiences me, and of course this is going to be based on personality, but if somebody experiences me in a way that's not how I want people to experience me, this bothers me. And so I'm not going to at least theoretically, I'm not going to defend myself. I very well might, because it depends on what happens. But I think that we should really work at being mortified. But, just kind of like, oh my, like I'm sorry that I don't want you to. I don't want you to experience me that way,
Right.
and it helps you do some self-reflection.
Yes,
and
that's right.
Because there maybe are some things that you look back on, you're like, oh, well, I can see how you would have felt that way.
Sure.
Still didn't do anything wrong. You don't say that part.
Well, you don't need to, because
No.
the consideration is making room for
Right.
your statement, which can then make room for maybe the other
Yeah.
person to come back with
Yeah.
some more information, right?
Yeah. And it's really being grateful that somebody thought enough of you
Yes,
to be able to
share
come
it.
and share that with you, because the path of least resistance, just say nothing and move on.
Well, I do think it's quite a skill to give that kind of apology, or to have this kind of couple communication where you say, that's how you remember it? Oh my gosh. Like to you actually have the empathy of, if what, you're telling me about what it was like for you, and now I'm having empathy. I'm seeing what that would be like to have felt that way in that space.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That's a challenging skill, right? I think that you have to recognize that it takes, I think, self-awareness. I think it takes maturity. I think it takes communication skills.
Yeah.
I think it takes empathy skills,
Yeah.
right? To be able to
Yeah.
still like not fall apart just because someone's, like you just said, experiencing you in a way you don't want. Whew, that can be hard,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it sounds simple perhaps to say, well, maybe you saw me that way, but it's a very intense actual whole brain and body actually skill response set, right?
Right. And I think kind of one final thing I'll mention is that one thing people can do is just adding the words "to me."
Yes, I think maybe.
Right.
Think words like perhaps, or even things like what I remember was,
Right.
what stands out to me.
Right. Yeah, like that's what it meant to me.
Right.
So if someone's like, I remember when, I remember when we were kids and you were so scared about this or that, and they're like, I wasn't scared. It's like, that's just to me
How it
you
seemed
were
to me.
scared,
Right. Mm-hmm.
To me you were, but you may not have been.
Right.
That's what that's saying. That's
That's right.
implied
That's
in
right.
there.
That's right.
That's just how I received it.
Right.
How I experienced you. So, so that's kind of. I mean, those are some of the nuances to that. But I think that what in a nutshell, if you understand that memory isn't there to present the exact
Black mirror experience.
right Black Mirror experience, the to give a detailed history of accounting of events, and then the other person must agree. That's not going to serve you well.
And I think I'll just wrap up my final thing with, I just had this thought when you were saying that, of I'm maybe really glad that's the case, because when I think about the end of the day and I kiss my kids goodnight, I hope they don't remember accurately everything that I did wrong.
Yes.
I hope that overall what they remember is that I'm giving them hugs and kisses and attention, right? So that they don't need that accuracy. They need the bottom line, which is, hey, I'm here and you're important, right?
Yeah.
So maybe that's the function.
Yeah, I mean, you when you said that, I was like, I have had many moments as a parent where I literally had the thought of, I hope they don't remember
I
that.
feel like I say that out loud sometimes, right?
Yes, like I was not my best moment.
Not my best moment. Hope they don't remember my tone and they remember what I did next or whatever. Yeah.
And I'm like, what if they remember it worse?
Right. And then you can go down a real rabbit hole.
Then
Right.
I'll
But
tell
hopefully
them.
that's the science of attachment, is that
Right.
they felt loved enough that they didn't need to remember their
Right.
accuracy.
Oh, and I remember in a conversation with Alexandra Katahakis, who is a author and therapist in Los Angeles, and we were just chatting about kids and stuff, and she just said something that really stuck with me, where she was like, "It's all about the repair."
Yeah.
And maybe that's what memory is about. It's like, what's the functionality, relational functionality of it? Is why is my partner bringing this to my attention? Because maybe they're trying to repair something. Maybe they're saying, like, they're not happy they remember it this way, whether it's accurate or how accurate or inaccurate it is. And so it's an effort to repair. So, and as Gottman says, that repair attempts are crucial.
That's actually what
in the
predicts
healing of
the
relationships.
successful relationships, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Is recognizing the repair attempts and accepting
That's right.
the repair. It's more, and to me, I think he kind of puts more emphasis on the receiver than the giver in that sense.
Yeah, the dynamic.
Like if someone's offering a repair attempt,
Take it.
you take it every time.
It's meaningful. Yeah.
Yep. Well,
I don't know if we clarified memory or not, but I hope that something was helpful.
yeah, I hope it's helpful. I mean, we're not memory experts on this.
No, maybe someday, but not today.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe we'll remember to...
Maybe we can remember to put it on our future to-do list.
I would tell people, like, I'll go back and look into this, but I don't know if I'll remember to. And yeah, as you know, mine has gotten really bad lately. I know you know that.
I do.
But I think a lot of it, some of it probably is age, but I think a lot of it is just irons in the fire.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's a lot of tasks on the task list.
Yeah. And phones.
Screens.
We blame screens for everything.
I know.
Yeah.
Good. They deserve it. Okay.
Well, Carrie, thanks for doing this today.
I'm glad. We just need to now remember what episodes we're doing in better order.
That's why it's on the phone. It'll tell me.
Okay, good.
All right. Well, there's so much more we could talk about, but
we'll go
ahead and wrap it up for today. But, all right. Well, thank you, everybody, for tuning in.